My husband's anger and rage that resulted from my betrayal. My husband, who we had been with for 20 years, did not fit the typical descriptions of husbands and the shortcomings of our husbands that we laughed about at bachelorette parties. In fact, it was more like complaining or belittling our husbands. Perhaps we girls thought of it as a form of group therapy. Of course, many of these comments, while humiliating, were presented in a rather humorous way. We laughed at these men. The alcohol improved the mood. It wasn't easy for me to take my husband Cooper negatively. He was handsome. He didn't really look like his father, but he was trim, in addition to being able to plan finances and provide for the family. He spent a lot of time with me and the kids. He didn't need much care from his wife, because he almost always picked up his own clothes and hung them in the closet and put the dirty ones right in the hamper, sorted into white, colored, and dark options. He could even do laundry, but that was mostly taken care of by me. He liked to store for groceries, which I appreciated, at least until I was grateful and started taking it all for granted. Cars were serviced, cleaned, fueled. The yard looked good to the neighbor. He was outgoing and friendly to the neighbors and all of our friends. He was a good lover, although after 20 years you know exactly what to expect in the bedroom. And me? Yeah, I was a little bored with our sex. But it's not like Cooper didn't try to liven it up. Toys, long weekends, lingerie for both of us. I felt like he insisted on it. But now looking back, I realize it was more for me. Did it add some stress to our marriage? Yes, but my husband was committed to me. And although at times frustrated with my attitude, he put up with it. He had a knack for coping, which made him a great financial planner. When glitches in the economy or markets upset his clients, he knew how to deal with it, endured their anger, listened until he could offer a reasonable point of view. I think that's why so many clients stayed with him. Sure, his plans worked for people, but it was his personality that kept them close to him. So why did I become dissatisfied with my husband and start looking for a partner for an affair? I ended up making a terrible mistake. I don't know how I got here. I'm stuck. I don't know how to change anything. It's a roller coaster of uncertainty and tension. I almost hoped that I would get caught and that our connection would unravel. It was so exhausting living a double life. If I was caught, it would take away my right to make a decision. What would happen would depend on the circumstances. As I continued to stay connected, it drained my marriage. The connection and focus on my marriage was diminishing. The emotional connection with my husband was diminishing. Our physical intimacy was diminishing. Our relationship became distorted, at least from my perspective. Of course, my husband must have realized all of this, but did he know? Or was he just too good at being faithful, for better or for worse, to just accept it, as he did with so many things? Perhaps it was because there was no hard evidence for a long time. But did he notice that we had moved away from our relationship that had become so familiar after 20 years together? Our personal lives, our relationships with each other, our schedules, our ways of appearing in public, of being presentable and open, which were different from the previous patterns. Saturday night was a regular bachelorette party, and we all went to a new club. This was definitely an event for young girls in their 20s and early 20s. We girls stood out, given our age, by being a little fuller in our dresses, and even our reaction to the lines in our direction. But the attention was breathtaking. It was great to be asked to dance, and even in a club. Not like at a wedding where couples our age waited for a slow song so our husband would come out of the bar and do his one and only slow dance with us, and then either go back to the bar or stay bored the rest of the evening at home. No, it was exciting. Noisy, frenetic dancing with young men who showed interest in us. So what if I was 42 and the guy I was with was 28? Not much of an age difference, is it? Since we girls all arrived by cab separately, we left separately as well. By late afternoon, we'd lost sight of each other anyway. This guy, Harris, dressed well, smelled good, had a lush head of hair, was trim, danced well, and said all the right things. Maybe there was something of the alcohol in that, but you know what? I enjoyed laughing, and I felt seen. I loved his interest and curiosity, the feeling of being wanted. It changed the routine of life with my husband. Cooper once told me that the secret to selling his financial products had little to do with facts, but was primarily about emotion when selling. As I look back on that night on the dance floor, I realize it was the emotion of the moment, not the fact that I was a wife, a mother, a homemaker. Good emotions are pretty compelling, and they just feel right. You know what I'm saying? If it feels good, then it's okay, right? Kissing on the dance floor was so hot. Even off the dance floor in the restroom hallway, I found myself pressing against him, touching my lips to his. Harris kissed me back greedily, his hands roaming my thighs. "I've wanted to do this all night," he whispered in my ear, his hot breath touching my skin. "Me too," I replied, and desire rang in my voice. In the dimly lit hallway, with the occasional customer passing by us, it seemed like we were the only ones in the club. So, after much dancing and kissing on and off the dance floor, Harris asked, "Don't you want to get out of here?" I accepted his offer and went to his house, which happened to be in the upscale Oak Hollow neighborhood. I admit I had a few thoughts on the way to his house, but the conversation was engaging, like I was with someone who understood me, who was open with me. The naturalness just felt right, safe, and comfortable. As he walked me to his front door, placing his hand on my lower back, I had conflicting feelings. Nervousness, insecurity, excitement, all at the same time. I wanted so badly to touch him, to experience something I hadn't had since college. Suddenly, insecurity crept in. Would I be right for him? Would he still find me attractive outside the dark club? In this well-appointed house, we couldn't keep our hands off each other. I looked around, saw the stairs, and dragged him upstairs where I thought we'd find the bedroom. Once we were inside, I pushed him onto the bed. I thought I'd better make love quickly before he changed his mind. Okay, that's a lie. It was because I didn't want to change my mind. We made love, and it was wonderful. Afterward, my eyes went black or stars flashed in front of my eyes, I'm not sure. Either way, the blood rushing through my veins drowned out all thoughts and visions. "It was amazing," I said, staring at the ceiling with my eyes wide open. "Yes, it was," Harris replied, rolling off me. We lay like that for a while longer, entwined in each other until our emotions returned to normal. How was the sex? Great. I mean, it's obviously different after all these years with another man. How could it be different? The technique is different. It's like you've known how to drive your car for years and are completely used to it. And then you rent a brand new car while on vacation and it smells different, has new gadgets to try out, feels different when you get behind the wheel and drives differently. Before I knew it, I had to take a cab home, so I arrived at 2 a.m. Cooper was already asleep, so I took a quick shower, for obvious reasons, and slipped quietly into bed, setting my alarm early enough to get up and make coffee as if nothing had happened. The next morning, Cooper came down to a pot of fresh coffee and a humming wife. Yes, I broke the habit that morning, as I am not a lark and usually grumpy until I've had a few cups of coffee. I think he was just happy to have a happy wife for that morning. Over the next few days, I found my thoughts wandering to the point where Cooper approached me about it as if something was wrong. I have to tell you, when you're having an affair, you have to learn to think fast and find reasonable answers. Okay, you get my point. Those are excuses. But what was my real dream? You know, of course, sex with a lover. Laughing, lying naked in front of my lover, remembering the wonderful emotions and endorphins of that evening. More dangerously, however, I'm leaning toward the idea of contacting Harris and seeing if it's possible to repeat that evening. What is truly amazing is that during this thought process, the thought of the fidelity of my vows did not occur to me. Why not? Because the kids were in college, Cooper usually held client meetings at home after dinner, so I had plenty of free time. And Harris? Could he make time for me? Would he agree? Should I call him or wait for him to call me? Would I buy a second phone? Can I change the lock code on my phone? Ugh, how often we have to resort to scams. He was more than happy to hear from me and even arranged to meet me at the hotel at his own expense. It was an amazing day. Then the girls started making plans again for the Friday night party, only this girl was going to meet somewhere else. Somewhere else is his house in Oak Hollow. Actually, it's his grandparents' house. He looked after the house since they were in Europe for the summer. It was a wonderful place with tree-lined streets and big houses spaced far enough apart that neighbors couldn't intrude. I would drive there to save time and money on cabs, plus no one would see my car from the street, considering how many oak trees grew in each house's yard, creating a secluded and lush setting. It became commonplace, to the extent that emotional feelings began to arise between Harris and me. What was it? Was it because he was young and virile and attracted me so well? Was it because I felt desirable? Was it because I was excited about an affair, tired of the stability of family life and marriage? What did he find in me? Did he have a maternal complex? Did he find my maturity more enjoyable than young girls? Did my life experience seem more defined and reliable than in his other relationships? Was it because I was married? Did he feel safe that our relationship would go this far? These are all unanswered questions, but they're all better left unanswered because the sex was so amazing. And anyway, who was hurt? No one. So Cooper and I went on with our daily lives, same old habits, including my dear husband doing his weekly duties on Sunday mornings, filling up the cars, cleaning them out, and washing them. Looking back, I realize with some regret that it was a stellar year for oak trees. Different varieties of oaks drop acorns at different times, some only every 4 years, some every 3 years, some every 2 years. Occasionally their cycles coincide, resulting in bountiful acorn harvests, sometimes ankle-high, depending on the number of trees in the yard. It's been that kind of year. What do you think my husband found in the hood? You know, that thing at the bottom of the windshield that's kind of like a grill with the windshield wipers sticking out of it? Answer: hundreds of acorns. There isn't a single tree in the clubhouse area downtown, at least nothing from which an acorn could fall. Imagine his curiosity. Where did all those acorns come from? Everyone knows this upscale neighborhood with old-style homes and some mansions, known for its mature oak trees throughout the area. Oak Hollow. I didn't discuss Cooper's thoughts specifically, as it turned out I didn't have much to talk to him about. I'll come back to that a little later. But I can imagine him wondering what my car was doing in the neighborhood during the bachelorette party. None of my girlfriends, or anyone we knew, lived there. His brain probably started working. My wife's car, Oak Hollow neighborhood, girls' night out, happy wife. I'm not good at math. But maybe he started putting together some patterns that were either starting to add up, or maybe they weren't adding up, and that was the problem. I don't know. What I do know for sure is what happened a few weeks later on a Sunday morning after another bachelorette party, which for me now meant getting another sex. Okay, it seemed funny at the time. It's not so funny now. Cooper was up early, especially after I got home so late and slept through the night. I went downstairs for a nice cup of coffee, and Cooper was making scrambled eggs. So I sat down at the kitchen table, trying to use the caffeine to bring myself to my senses, even though I'd had sex just a few hours ago. Here, baby, I've got some scrambled eggs for you. And he put a plate in front of me. He opened the skillet and laid the eggs on the plate. I thought my eyes were still a little blurry because I couldn't make out whether the eggs had bacon or sausage in them. I squinted and looked again, and it was acorns. Acorns in the eggs. When I looked up, I saw my husband leaning against the kitchen table, frowning and looking at me. I waited for him to say something, but he just stood there staring at me. Obviously, something was wrong. You don't have to be a 20-year-old spouse to realize if you see acorns in a scrambled egg, then something is wrong. But having an affair on the side means you're in a constant state of paranoia, Yes, you seem to be taking precautions to hide great sex from your spouse, but I'm constantly looking over my shoulder with intense anxiety, wondering if I've missed something he might find. Acorns and eggs, a stone-faced husband, and no one to talk to. That definitely meant there was a problem. And he didn't say anything? How do I play this? What would you do? Well, I looked at the acorns and eggs again and decided not to give it much thought. Thank you, dear. I don't think I've ever tried that combination before. And I picked up my fork and started eating the scrambled eggs, pushing the acorns aside and glancing at him as I ate. Still the same silence. Our laundry room is next to the kitchen. Cooper walked through the door to the laundry room, came back with a plastic bag and tossed it on the table in front of me. Again, no words. I looked at him, but this time his face was angry. He didn't say anything. Did I dare to say something? Should I ask him what was wrong? Or should I just look into that bag? After all, he had thrown it to me. Instead, I just sat there. "Dump the bag out," he commanded. Picking up the bag, I dumped its contents onto the kitchen table. It was 5 different sets of panties. I wondered where they had gone. I couldn't find them when I did the laundry. "Look at them! Now!" he shouted. I jumped at his shout but stayed where I was. I knew what he wanted and why. All I could do was stare at the table. He must have pulled my panties out of the laundry basket every Sunday morning to see if there were any traces of my lover on them and discovered something he probably hoped not to find. Obviously, what I was looking at on the table was a confession. My silence probably didn't help. But what could I say? He knew, and he broke the silence. I don't need to describe the anger and rage that resulted from my betrayal. He said many things that could never not be said again. Things that proved our marriage was hopelessly lost. Almost everything he said was true. And even when I wanted to apologize and say I was sorry, I knew they were just words. Eventually, I was able to squeeze out, "It's over." It was probably a mistake. Looking back, I think I should have just let him vent his anger. Just sat there and tolerated it as long as he could go on and let him have his way. But no, I didn't. All I did was make him even angrier. "How do I know it's over? Am I supposed to trust you now? I'm a financial planner. Tell me, should I invest in this marriage? When we made our vows, it was supposed to be a guarantee. Now I'm supposed to say that past results are no guarantee of future results?" It hurt, but he was right. That's when I decided to shut up and not make things worse. Give him some space. Let him grieve. Try to find a way to get forgiveness, or at least wait for a time when we could talk instead of yelling at each other. That took some time. From that point on, there was no warmth, compassion, or tenderness left from him. That's not to say he was rude, but mostly he just took care of himself. He did his own laundry, did his own grocery shopping, cooked his own meals, and cleaned his car himself. I was also mostly left to myself. I had no idea everything he was doing here. After about 2 weeks, he said he wanted to sit down and talk. Although I was kind of looking forward to it, when the time came, I seemed to forget everything I wanted to say to him. My handsome husband began like this. I've been trying to deal with the grief over the breakup of our relationship. Even if I forgive you, even if you stop cheating on me, our relationship is forever changed. Hearing this made me cry. Over the past 2 weeks, the cost of my affair had started to rise, especially emotionally. So it was pretty hard to hear that I would never have that relationship with Cooper again. "I was hoping that eventually you'd forgive me and we could start over," I said quietly. "I don't think so. How do I know you're not communicating with your lover?" "I'm not. I broke up with him." Hearing the word lover was rather unpleasant. I cried. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about forgiving you, trying to get back to what I thought we had. Maybe I wasn't enough, but whatever the reasons you cheated on me, it was all because of you. I don't know why you did it, but whatever I did, it doesn't justify you leaving me." "No, It wasn't you. You're right. It's all up to me. Yeah? Well, thanks for admitting the obvious. Here's the problem with forgiveness. If I forgive you, it makes me feel like I accept your affair as acceptable, like it's normal. And even though you'll forever have wonderful memories of sex and morning purrs over coffee, I'll hear that purr and think you're reflecting on the happiness you found in the arms of another man. Oh, God, that's too bad. I haven't thought about anything like that from his point of view. So what am I supposed to do? Cooper continued. All of this has taken away my ability to be responsible for myself. Instead, you were responsible for me and my choices. That's why it's called tooting your own horn. No, baby. You're not like that. Not like that at all. You're a good person. This is my fault. Please don't think like that. Unfortunately, it's a fact now, and I'm going to take back control of myself, and only myself. You'll be free to do whatever you want. He said this to me with a serious expression, raising one eyebrow. I knew what it meant. Cooper, please don't. Please give me a chance. A chance? The kind you gave me? No, you arbitrarily took away my choice. I take it back. I'll be honest with you. I just don't want to be around you. But a divorce is something everyone will know about, and they'll ask why. So if you're so remorseful, maybe you'll tell them the truth. If they ask, you can be sure I'll tell them the truth. And 3 months later, I was a single woman again, with half of our savings, a car, and an apartment. We sold the house, and yes, Cooper was fair in dividing all of our assets. I was even awarded child support for 2 years, which was more than I expected, or deserved. What else did I get? A verbal beating from my parents, the scorn of my neighbors, the resentment of my adult children over the breakup of my family, loneliness, responsibility for my bills, a reputation as a frivolous woman, the anxiety of finding a job. I think after a while, the routine of married life, even in a good marriage with a good partner, as I had with Cooper, I think the benefits that come with routine can be distorted and turn into drawbacks. Perhaps my complaining at bachelorette parties gradually ruined all the good things I had in my life. It also led to me being a target for other men, while my mood was such that my actions would certainly not pass the test for a husband. Now that I have so much free time, I find it increasingly difficult to fill it. Yes, work is time-consuming and it sucks. It was so much nicer to be well off without having to worry about waiting for the next paycheck. Cooper was making good money, and while the terms of my divorce were good, it certainly wouldn't be enough to live on for the rest of my life. I wasn't thinking about that when Harris had sex with me, was I? For the rest of my life. I expected the rest of my life to be pretty pleasant. A vacation I couldn't afford right now. Time spent with my life partner, with whom we had both been through ups and downs. How could I possibly have that now? Should I try to build on a relationship like this by starting over with someone new? Cooper is handsome and will only look more attractive and sophisticated as he gets older. Women become very different as they get older. What about dating? Who am I supposed to date? And who will trust me? What do I have to say about why I'm divorced? Yes, I'm divorced. It was my fault. I was a cheater, but, I've changed. I can be trusted. Who's gonna believe that? What if the guy who's interested in me was a cheater? Should I trust him? Wow. As boring and humdrum as some periods of my life may have seemed, they certainly had their advantages. I think right now, in my current circumstances, my life is pretty interesting, but I'm not sure interesting is a good thing. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you!